The Kennedy half dollar isn't just a piece of change, it's a living tribute to one of America's most iconic presidents. From its powerful design to the rich history behind each release, this coin has fascinated collectors and history lovers for decades. Whether it's the silver-lined versions of the early years or the later copper-nickel strikes, each Kennedy half dollar holds secrets, value, and stories worth exploring. In this video, we'll dive into some of the most talked-about years, uncovering the details, hidden gems, and collector insights behind the 1972, 1979, 1971, 1993, 1986, and 1998 Kennedy half dollars. Alright, let's dive into one of the most iconic coins in American history. First up, we've got the 1972 Kennedy half dollar, a coin that carries far more than just a 50-cent face value. It holds a deep emotional connection to a nation still healing from the loss of President John F. Kennedy. Introduced in 1964, just months after his assassination, this coin quickly became a cherished tribute. By 1972, it had firmly cemented itself as a symbol of honor, remembrance, and American pride. Take a closer look at the coin, and you'll see why it stands out. On the front, or obverse, you'll find a striking profile of President Kennedy, facing left. The design was crafted by Gilroy Roberts, who captured JFK's strength, resolve, and leadership in a powerful image. Above his head, the word Liberty stretches across the rim, while In God We Trust sits just below his chin. At the very bottom, you'll see the year, 1972. Simple, elegant, timeless. Now flip the coin, and the reverse side is just as impressive. It features the presidential seal, designed by Frank Gasparo, which shows a heraldic eagle with a shield on its chest, an olive branch in one talon, and arrows in the other. The eagle clutches a scroll in its beak inscribed with E pluribus unum, meaning out of many one. Around the eagle are 50 stars, one for each U.S. state. And circling the rim of the coin are the inscriptions, United States of America and half dollar. But let's talk materials, because that's something collectors really care about. Unlike the earlier 1964 Kennedy half dollar, which was made of 90% silver, and the 1965 to 1970 issues, which were 40% silver, the 1972 version is made of copper-nickel clad. So no silver content here. That switch happened in 1971 when the U.S. Mint completely removed silver from standard half dollars. So if you're wondering whether your 1972 coin has silver in it, the answer is probably not, unless it's a special proof coin, which we'll talk about soon. Speaking of where these coins came from, 1972 Kennedy half dollars were minted at 3 locations: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Coins from Philadelphia have no mint mark. The Denver Mint coins have a small D on the obverse just above the date, and San Francisco coins have an S. The Philadelphia Mint produced over 153 million of these, while Denver struck about 141 million. But the San Francisco Mint only made around 3.2 million, and those were special proof coins, meaning they were made with extra care for collectors, featuring that deep mirror finish and crisp detail. Now, let's talk about what this coin is worth. In average circulated condition, a 1972 Kennedy half dollar usually isn't worth much more than its face value, around 50 cents to $1. That's because they were made in huge quantities and are easy to find. But if your coin is in uncirculated condition, meaning it looks brand new, with no wear or scratches, its value jumps up. Mint state coins, especially in grades like MS-65 or MS-66, can be worth anywhere from $5 to $25, sometimes more if it has strong luster and sharp details. The real excitement, though, comes with proof coins. These are the ones from a San Francisco Mint with that shiny, high-contrast finish. If you've got a 1972 S-proof in top condition, especially if it's been graded PR69 or PR70 by a company like PCGS or NGC, it might be worth $15, $30, even $50 or more depending on demand. Now here's where things get really interesting: mint errors and varieties. One of the most famous varieties for the 1972 Kennedy half dollar is the no FG error. Usually you'll find the initials FG for Frank Gasparo between the eagle's tail feathers and the right leg on the reverse. But on some 1972 coins, those initials are missing, completely gone. This happened due to die polishing, where the mint tried to smooth out the die and accidentally remove the initials. These no FG errors are a big deal to collectors. Even in circulated condition, they can fetch $50 to $100, and in high-grade, uncirculated condition, even more. Another error to look out for is the double die obverse. This is where parts of the design, like the lettering or Kennedy's profile, appear slightly doubled due to a misalignment during the minting process. These are rare but very collectible, and their value can range anywhere from $100 to a few $100s depending on the clarity of the doubling and the condition of the coin. Still with me? Good, because there's more. If you're trying to build a collection of Kennedy half dollars, the 1972 coin is a great one to include. Not only is it affordable and widely available, but it's also a milestone in the series as one of the early post-silver issues. A lot of people collect Kennedy halves by date and mint mark, so having all three versions of the 1972 coin, Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, is a good place to start. And let's not forget about presentation sets. The U.S. Mint released these coins as part of both uncirculated mint sets and special proof sets. If you can find a complete original mint set or proof set from 1972 in its government packaging, you'll not only get a Kennedy half dollar, but also that year's penny, nickel, dime, and quarter, all with matching mint marks. These full sets can be worth more together than each coin individually. So what's the takeaway? The 1972 Kennedy half dollar might not be silver and might not make you rich overnight, but it's a coin packed with meaning, beauty, and value, especially for collectors who appreciate American history and presidential legacy. Next up, we're diving into the world of the 1979 Kennedy half dollar, a coin that may not get as much spotlight as the early silver issues, but it's got its own unique charm, interesting details, and even a few surprises that collectors are always on the lookout for. Whether you've got one sitting in a drawer or you're just curious about what makes this year stand out, you're about to get the full breakdown. Let's start with the basics. The 1979 Kennedy half dollar continues the same general design we all recognize. On the obverse, you've got that powerful left-facing portrait of John F. Kennedy, designed by Gilroy Roberts. Above his head, you'll see the word Liberty, spaced out along the top edge of the coin. Just beneath Kennedy's chin is the national motto, "In God We Trust," and at the very bottom of the coin is the year, 1979. It's simple, patriotic, and instantly recognizable. On the reverse side, things stay consistent with the design by Frank Gasparo. You've got the eagle from the presidential seal clutching arrows in one talon and an olive branch in the other. Surrounding it is a ring of 50 stars, symbolizing the states of the Union. Above the eagle is United States of America, and at the bottom, half dollar. It's bold, meaningful, and full of national symbolism. Now about the composition. Just like the 1972 issue, the 1979 Kennedy half dollar is not made of silver. It's a copper-nickel-clad coin, meaning it has an outer layer of copper-nickel bonded to an inner core of pure copper. It weighs 11.34 grams and measures 30.6 millimeters across. So if you were hoping to find some silver in this one, unfortunately, that's not going to happen, unless you stumble across a rare error or one from Special Collector's set, which we'll get into shortly. The 1979 half dollars were minted at 3 different U.S. mints: Philadelphia, no mint mark; Denver, marked with a D; and San Francisco, marked with an S. The Philadelphia mint pumped out over 68 million coins that year, and Denver cranked out around 15 million. But it's the San Francisco coins that deserve special attention because this is where we get into the proofs, and even more interestingly, the variety of mint marks that showed up. In 1979, the San Francisco Mint released Kennedy half dollars as proof coins. These coins were made using a special process that results in ultra-sharp details and a mirror-like finish. But here's the cool part. There are actually 2 different types of S mint marks on the proof coins from this year, and this is where collectors get excited. You've got Type 1, which has a filled or blobby-looking S. This version was made earlier in the year and is considered less sharp. Then there's Type 2, which features a much clearer, more defined S. Type 2 is the scarcer variety and is the one collectors really want. So if you've got a 1979 S proof half dollar, it's worth flipping it under a magnifying glass and checking which one you've got. Type 2 proofs in high grade can go for $30, $50, or even more depending on condition. Now let's talk value. For the Philadelphia and Denver coins, if they've been in circulation and show wear, they're usually only worth face value, 50 cents. However, if you've got a 1979 Kennedy half dollar in uncirculated condition, we're talking shiny, no scratches, full detail, it could be worth $2 to $5. Higher grade examples, especially those graded MS65 or better, can sometimes reach $10 to $20 if the market is hot. 4 proof coins, a Type 1 in perfect PR69 or PR70 condition, might fetch between $5 and $20. But the real value is in that rarer Type 2 proof, which can bring in higher prices if it's in top condition. As far as errors go, there aren't many well-known errors from 1979, but they do exist. Like any coin year, you can sometimes find off-center strikes, clip planchets, where a small portion of the coin is missing, or die cracks. These kinds of errors are random and can add value depending on how dramatic or visible they are. A nicely centered off-center strike might be worth $50 to $100 or more to the right buyer. And here's something cool. If you're into coin collecting sets, the U.S. Mint released mint sets and proof sets in 1979 that included the Kennedy half dollar. These sets are a great way to get high-quality versions of the coin, especially if they're still in original government packaging. Proof sets from San Francisco are especially desirable because of the S mint mark varieties, and if you can find an original Type 2 proof set, that's a solid addition to any collection. Now let's step back a little and talk about the bigger picture. By 1979, the Kennedy half dollar was still being produced in large numbers, but it wasn't used as much in everyday transactions. Most people had stopped carrying half dollars around, and banks didn't keep them in stock unless requested. That's part of why many half dollars from the 1970s are still in good condition. They weren't bouncing around in pockets or cash drawers as much as pennies or quarters. Collectors often overlook the late 70s Kennedy halves, but that's a mistake. The truth is, these coins can be affordable, accessible, and still offer a fun hunting ground for variations and high grades. The 1979 coin in particular is a great piece for beginner collectors, especially if you want to chase the proof varieties or just fill out a year-by-year Kennedy collection. So whether you've got a jar full of half dollars or just stumbled across a 1979 piece by chance, take a closer look. Check for that mint mark. Look at the condition. Who knows, you might be holding a rare variety, a sharp proof, or just a really nice example of a coin that continues to capture the imagination of collectors and history lovers alike. Next up, we're going back to the start of a brand new chapter for the Kennedy half dollar, the 1971 edition. This coin is pretty significant because it marked the beginning of a new era for the series. Why? Because 1971 was the very first year the U.S. Mint completely removed silver from circulating Kennedy half dollars. That's right, no silver in this one. So while earlier coins had some silver content, the 1971 version was all about copper-nickel. But even without silver, this coin is still full of value, history, and some cool collector-worthy features. Let's break it down. Just like its predecessors, the obverse of the 1971 Kennedy half dollar features that sharp, dignified profile of President John F. Kennedy, facing left. The designer Gilroy Roberts sculpted this portrait based on a bust he had created of JFK during his presidency. Across the top is the word Liberty, with the motto, "In God We Trust," split on either side of Kennedy's neckline, and the date, 1971, appearing at the bottom. It's classic, clean, and instantly recognizable. On the reverse, we get that familiar image by Frank Gasparro, the presidential seal. An eagle with its wings spread wide holds a bundle of arrows in one talon and an olive branch in the other, with a shield on its chest. Above its head is a scroll with the Latin phrase, E pluribus unum, meaning out of many one. And of course, the rim is encircled by 50 stars and the phrases, United States of America and half dollar. No matter how many times you see it, it still feels powerful and patriotic. Now, let's talk metal composition. This is the big change. From 1965 to 1970, Kennedy half dollars were made of 40% silver. But starting in 1971, the U.S. Mint moved to a copper-nickel-clad composition, just like quarters and dimes of the same era. These coins have an outer layer of 75% copper and 25% nickel, bonded to a pure copper core. So if you're wondering whether your 1971 half dollar has any silver in it, the answer is a solid no, unless you have a super rare mint error, which we'll get to shortly. Now, where were these coins minted? In 3 places: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. The Philadelphia Mint made over 155 million of them, and these coins don't have a mint mark. The Denver Mint struck about 302 million, and you'll spot a small D mint mark just above the date on the obverse. As for the San Francisco Mint, they only made proof coins, around 3 million of them, marked with an S. These were special collector's coins with sharp details and mirror-like surfaces. In terms of value, if your 1971 Kennedy half dollar came from circulation and has visible wear, it's usually worth just face value, 50 cents. But if it's in uncirculated condition, meaning it looks brand new with no scratches, wear, or dulling, you're looking at a coin that might be worth between $2 and $10, depending on its grade and eye appeal. The higher the grade, the higher the value. Coins graded MS-65 or above are what collectors really go after. Now, the proof coins from the San Francisco Mint. These are the shiny ones that were made for collectors. In high grades like PR69 or PR70, a 1971 S. Kennedy half dollar might fetch $10 to $30 or more, depending on the market. Proof coins have that gorgeous mirror finish and sharp design details, so they're popular among those looking to complete full sets or just enjoy the beauty of a pristine coin. Here's where it gets fun: errors and varieties. One of the most famous and sought-after errors in the 1971 Kennedy half dollar series is the 1971 D silver-clad error. This is a coin that was struck on a leftover 40% silver planchet from 1970. It's extremely rare and can be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars depending on its condition. If you think you've got one, the easiest way to tell is by checking the edge of the coin. Normal 1971 coins will show a brownish copper core when viewed from the side, but the silver-clad errors will look mostly white or silver on the edge. A scale test, silver planchets weigh slightly more, or a metal composition test can help confirm it. Other errors include double-die obverse, off-center strikes, and clipped planchets, all of which can raise a coin's value significantly depending on how dramatic and rare the error is. If you're a collector or just starting out, the 1971 Kennedy half dollar is a must-have because it's a turning point. It represents the shift from silver to clad, which is a major moment in U.S. coinage history. It's also the beginning of the modern Kennedy half dollars, the ones that many of us grew up seeing in jars, drawers, or tucked away in bankrolls. It's also worth mentioning that even though the general public wasn't using half dollars as often by 1971, the mint still produced them in large quantities. Most of these coins went into storage, got used for vending, or were hoarded by people who remembered the earlier silver years. Today, they're pretty easy to find in uncirculated rolls or mint sets if you're building out a year-by-year collection. Speaking of mint sets, if you want a crisp, high-quality 1971 Kennedy half dollar, look for one that came in an official 1971 mint set. These coins usually have a better strike and luster than the ones found in circulation, and the set itself is a great time capsule of the year's coinage. So to sum it all up, the 1971 Kennedy half dollar may not be made of silver, but it's far from boring. It's historically important, widely collected, and still full of surprises if you're lucky enough to stumble upon a high-grade example or a rare error. Whether you're just learning about coin collecting or you've been at it for years, this coin deserves a spot in your collection. Next up, let's turn our attention to the 1993 Kennedy half dollar, a coin that continues the legacy of one of America's most iconic figures, President John F. Kennedy. Even though this isn't one of the earlier or silver-era releases, 1993 still holds its own place in the world of collecting, especially if you're looking to complete a full set or explore subtle mint variations and high-grade coins. So, let's start with the design. No surprises here, but still worth appreciating. On the obverse front side, we've got that strong, classic profile of JFK facing left, designed by Gilroy Roberts. His hair is sharp, the cheekbone defined, and the overall vibe is one of quiet strength. Just above his head is the word Liberty, spaced clearly along the top. Below his chin is the famous American motto, "In God We Trust," and underneath that, the date, 1993. Flip it over to the reverse, and you're met with the stunning presidential seal by Frank Gasparo. The eagle is front and center, wings spread proudly. In one talon, it clutches a bundle of arrows, ready for defense. In the other, a peaceful olive branch. Above the eagle's head is a banner that reads E Pluribus Unum, and all around the design are 50 stars representing the states. Boldly written along the rim, United States of America, and at the bottom, half dollar. Even after decades of use, this design still commands respect. Now, let's get into the composition. By 1993, Kennedy half dollars had long been made with no silver content for regular circulation coins. The 1993 version follows the standard copper-nickel-clad format, an outer layer of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a pure copper core. The total weight remains the same at 11.34 grams, and the diameter is 30.6 millimeters. As for mint marks, the 1993 Kennedy half dollar was struck at two mints for general circulation, Philadelphia and Denver. Coins from Philadelphia bear no mint mark, while coins from Denver have a small D mint mark above the date on the obverse. Additionally, there were also proof coins made at the San Francisco Mint, which have an S mint mark and were sold directly to collectors in special proof sets. Now the real talk value. Circulated 1993 Kennedy half dollars aren't rare. If you got one from a pocket or coin jar that shows wear, it's generally worth 50 cents. Yep, face value. But if you've got one in uncirculated condition, that's where the value starts to climb a little. A crisp, shiny, uncirculated 1993 half dollar can sell for $2 to $5, sometimes a bit more if it's in exceptional condition. Coins graded MS65 or higher, meaning mint state with no scratches, dings, or marks, can go for $10 to $25, depending on demand. If you have one that's been professionally graded by services like Peace GS or NGC and comes in a slab with an official grade, buyers are often willing to pay more, especially for those pristine MS67 or MS68 examples. Let's talk about the proof coins now. These are the real showstoppers, the ones struck using polished dies and specially prepared blanks. A 1993 S. Kennedy half dollar proof is known for its deep, mirror-like surfaces and frosty raised details. It's not rare, over 2.4 million were minted, but collectors love them for their beauty. A standard 1993 S proof in PR69 condition usually sells for $5 to $15, while a perfect PR70 can go for $40 or more, especially if it's graded and slabbed. Now, what about errors and varieties? Well, the 1993 Kennedy half dollar doesn't have a ton of famous error types, but that doesn't mean they're non-existent. Occasionally, collectors come across off-center strikes, clip planchets, or coins with die cracks or strike-throughs. These types of errors are always interesting and can fetch anywhere from $20 to over $100 depending on how dramatic or rare the flaw is. One thing to watch for, though, is the occasional missing clad layer error. That's when a Kennedy half is struck on a planchet that's missing either its outer copper-nickel layer or one side of it. These are easy to spot because the affected side looks duller or coppery compared to the usual silver-like shine. If legit, these can be worth several $100s. Now, let's take a moment to talk about collectability. The 1993 Kennedy half dollar is part of the final stretch of regular circulation issues before production of half dollars began to taper off in the late 1990s and early 2000s. By this point, fewer people were using half dollars in everyday commerce, so many coins ended up being hoarded or stored in rolls, mint sets, or proof sets. As a result, there are lots of high-grade examples out there, but they're still worth keeping an eye on for varieties and condition. For collectors building full Kennedy half dollar albums, the 1993 edition is essential. It's not rare, but if you want a complete year-by-year collection, you've got to have it. It also pairs nicely with a proof version from the same year to show off the contrast between regular strike and proof strike coins. Now here's a tip. If you're out at coin shows or shopping online, and you spot a 1993 Kennedy half dollar that looks particularly sharp, check for full strike details. That means all the hairlines on Kennedy's portrait are sharply visible, and the eagle's feathers on the reverse are crisp and complete. Coins with strong strike quality, especially from the Philadelphia Mint, are slightly harder to find and could command a small premium. To wrap it up, the 1993 Kennedy half dollar may not be a silver stunner or a first-year issue, but it's a solid, dependable piece of U.S. coinage that holds its own in collections. It reflects the strength of the Kennedy legacy and the continuing journey of American coinage through the late 20th century. And who knows, yours might just have that perfect uncirculated luster or hidden error that makes it a true standout. Next up, we're diving into the 1986 Kennedy half dollar, a coin from the heart of the 1980s that still keeps the legacy of John F. Kennedy alive with every detail. Even though this one isn't made of silver and isn't super rare, it still has its own charm, history, and collector appeal. Whether you're into coin collecting seriously or just exploring some cool pieces of U.S. coinage, the 1986 half dollar is worth a closer look. Let's kick things off with the design. No surprises here, but always worth appreciating. The obverse features the elegant profile of President Kennedy facing left, designed by Gilroy Roberts. You'll notice the confident gaze, the clean lines in the hair, and that unmistakable presence. Just above JFK's head is the word Liberty, bold and strong. Beneath his chin is the America motto, "In God We Trust," and center below, that is the date 1986. It's familiar, timeless, and one of those designs that just sticks with you. Flip the coin over to the reverse, and you're greeted by the powerful image of the presidential seal, designed by Frank Gasparo. The eagle stands proud, wings spread wide, with a shield on its chest. In one talon is an olive branch symbolizing peace, and in the other, a bundle of arrows symbolizing readiness for defense. Above its head is a banner that reads E Pluribus Unum, and circling the eagle are 50 stars, one for each state. Around the rim, you've got United States of America at the top and $50 at the bottom. It's a solid, powerful design that's endured for decades. Now, let's talk metal composition. The 1986 Kennedy $50, like others from this era, was made for general circulation with a copper-nickel clad composition. That means it has an outer layer of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a pure copper core. So if you're hoping it's silver, sorry, not this one. It weighs 11.34 grams and measures 30.6 millimeters across, just like all Kennedy $50 since 1964. When it comes to mint locations, these coins were struck at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints for circulation. The Philadelphia coins have no mint mark, while the Denver coins feature a small D mint mark located above the date on the obverse. There were also proof coins made at the San Francisco Mint, which carry an S mint mark and are found at special proof sets designed for collectors. Now, let's get into the mintage numbers, because this tells us a lot about how common or rare a coin might be. In 1986, the Philadelphia Mint produced about 13.1 million Kennedy $50, while the Denver Mint pumped out a bit more, 15.3 million. Those are relatively low mintage figures compared to earlier years, especially the 1960s and 1970s, when hundreds of millions were made annually. The San Francisco Mint struck around 3.4 million proof coins, which were only available in collector sets. So what's the value of a 1986 Kennedy $50 today? Well, if it's a coin you pulled out of change or found in a drawer and it's got somewhere, it's worth 50 cents, just face value. But if you've got one in uncirculated condition, things start to get more interesting. A shiny uncirculated 1986 $50 typically sells for $2 to $5, and if it's in MS65 or higher, it could bring in $10 to $25, depending on demand and condition. The proof coins from San Francisco are a different story. These were made for collectors using special polished dies and planchets, so they've got that shiny mirror-like background and frosty raised details. A 1986 S Kennedy $50 proof in PR 69 condition generally sells for around $5 to $15, while a perfect PR 70 could fetch $30 to $60, especially if it's been graded by PCGS or NGC. And now, let's talk errors and varieties, because this is where some real value can sneak in. The 1986 Kennedy $50 isn't known for a huge number of famous errors, but some interesting ones have popped up, like off-center strikes, clip planchets, and die cracks. These can add value to your coin, depending on how dramatic and rare the error is. A nice off-center example or a coin struck on a defective planchet can be worth $50 to $200 or more. Another cool thing to look out for is a missing clad layer error, where the nickel outer layer doesn't get bonded properly to the copper core. One side of a coin might look coppery or dull, and the surface feels rough instead of smooth. These kinds of minting mistakes are rare, and collectors love them, often paying a premium of several $100s, depending on condition and authenticity. Now you might be wondering, why bother collecting a coin like this when it's not silver and not super old? The answer lies in its role in the bigger picture. The 1986 Kennedy $50 is part of the ongoing story of American coinage. It's also a snapshot of the mid-1980s, when $50 were still produced for circulation, but were slowly disappearing from everyday use. Most people just didn't use $50 anymore, which means these coins often went straight into rolls, bank vaults, or collector albums. For people building a complete Kennedy $50 collection, you definitely need the 1986 issue to fill that spot in your album. And if you want to take it a step further, try getting all three versions: the Philadelphia, no mint mark, Denver, D mint mark, and the San Francisco proof, S mint mark. That gives you a well-rounded set from that year, and if you go after high-grade examples, it really makes your collection stand out. Also, let's not overlook the historical and emotional value. Every Kennedy $50, no matter the year, is a tribute to a president whose memory left a powerful mark on American history. The fact that this design is still in use today shows just how much JFK continues to inspire. To wrap it all up, the 1986 Kennedy half dollar might not be flashy, silver-filled, or incredibly rare, but it's got a quiet charm, a strong design, and a solid place in U.S. coinage history. Next up, we're wrapping this lineup with the 1998 Kennedy half dollar, a coin that quietly closed out the decade before the Kennedy series took an interesting turn in 1999. At first glance, it might seem like just another copper-nickel-clad half dollar, but there's a little more going on beneath the surface, especially when you start looking into special editions, condition grades, and collector sets. So let's dig into the 1998 issue and see what makes this coin a neat little piece of late 90s U.S. minting history. Let's start with the classic design. Just like every Kennedy half dollar since 1964, the obverse features the iconic left-facing portrait of President John F. Kennedy. Designed by Gilroy Roberts, this profile shows Kennedy's strong, youthful features, representing both his legacy and hope for the future. The word Liberty curves around the top, "In God We Trust," rests just under the neckline, and below all that, you'll see the year 1998 stamped into the field. Flip it over to the reverse, and we're met once again by the elegant presidential seal, crafted by Frank Gasparo. The eagle is bold, clutching an olive branch in one talon and arrows in the other, surrounded by a circle of 50 stars. You've got United States of America arching above and half dollar anchoring the bottom. It's a timeless image that carries weight even after decades of use. Now, when it comes to composition, the standard 1998 Kennedy half dollar was struck with a copper-nickel-clad formula, just like other circulation issues from the mid-70s onward. The coin has a copper core with a 75% copper and 25% nickel outer layer. It weighs 11.34 grams, has a 30.6 millimeters diameter, and a reeded edge. No silver here, at least not in the regular circulating coins. But here's where it gets more interesting. 1998 wasn't just another clad year. It also included something special, a limited edition silver matte finish Kennedy half dollar that was only released as part of a commemorative set. We'll get to that in a moment, but first let's talk about the regular coins. For 1998, the Philadelphia Mint, no mint mark, and the Denver Mint, with a D mint mark, struck standard half dollars for circulation. The mint mark can be found on the obverse, just above the date. On top of those, the San Francisco Mint produced proof versions, as usual, marked with an S. Those were intended for collectors and came in proof sets. Mintage numbers? Well, the Philadelphia Mint produced around 21.5 million coins, while the Denver Mint made about 15.1 million. That's relatively low compared to older issues, but still not rare. The San Francisco Mint cranked out roughly 2.1 million proof coins, again not rare, but desirable in high grade. Let's talk value. Circulated 1998 Kennedy half dollars from Philly or Denver are generally worth face value, 50 cents. They're common, and unless they're uncirculated or something unusual, that's where the price stays. But uncirculated coins in MS-63 to MS-65 condition can fetch $2 to $6. Go higher into MS-66 or MS-67 territory, and you might be looking at $10 to $30 depending on the market and grading service. The 1998 S-proof coins have that mirror-like finish and frosty detail collectors love. A typical 1998 S Kennedy proof in PR69 condition is worth $5 to $12, while a PR70 can go for $25 to $50, especially if slabbed by PCGS or NGC. Now, let's go back to the special edition I mentioned earlier. In 1998, the U.S. Mint released a Special 2 coin set to commemorate the death of Robert F. Kennedy. This set included a Robert F. Kennedy commemorative silver dollar and, here's the exciting part, a matte finish 1998 S Kennedy half dollar struck in 90% silver. This coin is totally unique among the Kennedy series. The matte finish gives the coin a soft, satin-like appearance, not proof, not business strike, just something in between. Only 62,000 of these matte silver half dollars were made, and they were never released individually, only inside that commemorative set. This makes the 1998 S matte silver Kennedy half dollar one of the rarest modern issues in the entire series. Because of its low mintage and unique finish, this special edition coin can fetch $250 to $400 or more, especially in SP69 specimen condition. It's one of those sleeper coins that serious Kennedy collectors keep their eyes out for because of how limited and distinct it is. Let's move on to error coins because even a common year can become exciting when the mint slips up. While the 1998 Kennedy half dollar isn't especially famous for major errors, there have been reported examples of off-center strikes, double dies, and clipped planchets. These kinds of errors can raise the value significantly, especially dramatic off-center strikes, which collectors love. A nice error could bring in $50 to $200 depending on rarity and how noticeable the flaw is. Now, what about collectability? The 1998 Kennedy half dollar plays a big role in modern collections, not just for being a clean, late 90s issue, but because it marked the final year before the reverse design changed in 1999 for a one-year bicentennial tribute commemorating JFK's birth in 1917. That makes the 1998 issue the last regular reverse design before a big shift, giving it a bit more significance. If you're building a complete Kennedy half dollar set, the 1998 is essential. Not only do you need the Philadelphia and Denver coins, but if you want to go deep, you'll want the proof version from San Francisco and the elusive matte silver specimen from the RFK set. A full 1998 lineup actually includes 4 variations, making it one of the more layered modern issues in the series.